Cool. Looks like we are officially live. So we'll give it a few minutes here to let some folks jump in. In the meantime, it's always good to catch up with you guys. Doesn't seem like we do it near enough, but I know trade show seasons are right around the corner, and that's typically where we get to spend some time together outside of a few hunts here or there. So, how have you guys been? What's been going on? Anybody still have any hunts going on? Where are you guys all wrapped up for the year?
Yeah, man, it's kind of winding down finally. It's been a long season. Been super successful season. We just got done with a vet hunt in Illinois, which was super fun. Hang out with four of our Americans heroes, which was cool. I know Eric's got one tag left, I think.
Yep, we still got one late season elk hunt to go on, which I'm really
Nice. Is
excited.
that a rifle hunt or muzzy or what is that?
It's a rifle hunt. Yep, it's a late bull hunt down in Arizona. We did this hunt last year. Casey ended up shooting a really nice bull. And I didn't tag out that hunt. So I kind of felt like I wanted redemption. That's how I get with these hunts. Like if I go to a certain area or a certain unit and get my butt kicked, I always feel like, all right, I gotta go try again. So I've got one more
Yeah.
hunt. And there's always like late coos deer hunts opportunities that pop up, but this year with this late elk hunt, I just think between that hunt and then the expo, just keep that time to work on expo and do all that stuff.
Nice. What about you, BMAC? Are you finished up for the year? Do you have any more tags in your pocket?
I am pretty well done and have transitioned to planning the Hunt Expo in Salt Lake here in February. So been in full mode of trying to work out what we're going to do for our booth space this year, making sure we've got the right product assortment and kind of planning out all the logistics that go around that event for us. It's the only trade show we do for the year these days, and it's a big one. It's in our home backyard. Generally speaking, we have a pretty good booth this year. I think it's like a 80 by 40 booth or something. So got a lot of space. We'll generally bring in a lot of taxidermy. Awesome opportunity to meet and greet. So that's going to be this February. It is the 15th to the 18th in Salt Lake City, Utah. And there is rumors that we might bring back the movie night before the Hunt Expo, which is historically been a pretty big event for us where we'll raise money for different charities. So we're working through the details of that, but looking optimistic.
Awesome. Yeah, you'll have to keep me in the loop on that. I've been to a few of those movie nights and they're a dang good time. So hopefully that comes to reality this year. But cool. Well, we'll dive in here. Appreciate everybody who took the time out of their evening for an hour here to jump on. I know that this is an exciting one, a little bit different than some of the previous webinar master classes you might have seen. Testing out a few new things and thought it would be a perfect time to get you guys on and chat through your guys' season this year, and then maybe what you guys have in store for 24 and so on and so forth. So for the folks that are on and joining us live, don't worry, your video and audio are turned off. We get that question all the time. We can't see you, we can't hear you. But if you have questions, make sure that you're dropping those in the Q&A section. So use the chat, let us know where you're tuning in from, chat between yourselves. But if you have questions that you want these gentlemen to answer at the end, make sure that you're using the actual Q&A, and we'll get to as many questions as we can. So we'll dive in here. Quick agenda. We're gonna talk real briefly about the history of Hush. What is Hush? When did it start? Who started it? How are all of you guys together now? And then want to get a quick story from maybe your guys' favorite hunt of 23. So what was each one of your guys' favorite hunts? And then we'll jump into a few other things. We've got a giveaway. We're going to give away some onX swag toward the end, and then Q&A for most of it here. So we'll kind of dive in. I threw a bunch of random photos together here from, I believe these are all your guys' this year's season. Is that correct?
Looks like
Yeah, looks pretty
Cool.
accurate. Yeah.
Good work,
There we
Dylan.
go. So
it.
yeah, thanks for shooting me all these photos over. So just a few photos. Obviously, you guys are no strangers to success each and every year. You guys go on some of the most epic hunts every single year. And we've got some good questions about that. toward the end here, but just looking at like a glance, and this is just a fraction of what you guys did this year. Obviously, you filled some tags and had some pretty epic moments. So before we dive into that specifically, would one of you guys run us through like how did Hush like where did Hush come from? When was it started? Like who had the idea and so on and so forth?
Run with
Yeah,
it.
I'll take that question. So in 2011, I actually started the channel Hush with the idea to, I don't know, really at the time, I wanted to, I always wanted to work in the outdoor industry of some capacity. And back then, I remember doing research on how to get a TV show at the time. And I realized quickly that you either had to have like $250,000 or you had to have a bunch of companies that believed in you. And I always thought, how does a company believe in you if you've never done this thing? So that's when YouTube kind of started taking off. And so I luckily had an older brother that did YouTube, and he convinced me that I should do outdoor TV on YouTube. And so I started dabbling a little bit in it and started to create some content, some hunting content in 2011. Did that for a few years, kind of a solo guy. Logan actually was in high school back then.
Yeah.
Helped me film, I think, the second season or third season. And then along the first couple of years, I'd met Eric. He was working in the outdoor space, and I actually knew who he was. He worked for a company that was based out of Utah where I was living. So I knew who Eric was. I introduced himself at the Hunt Expo and just kind of told him what I was doing. Doing hunting content on the digital platform. And immediately Eric was like, man, that's what I want to do. I've been looking into it. I've been telling my partners I want to do it. So we met that way. And then I met Brian, I think back in 2013, maybe 14,
Well,
12 on a hunt in New Mexico. And Brian was a sales guy by trade. And he knew how to do all those important things that I didn't know how to do, like put a spreadsheet together and send it off to a company. And so he started helping me a little bit on the back end, try to get sponsorship. And long roundabout story. We all finally came together in, I think, 2014 and started working on this thing full time. And then brought Logan on a few years later, and then Maddie, I think 2 years ago.
It's crazy how much this whole conversation goes in a circle and like over and over and over again. As we already mentioned the Hunt Expo, BMAC mentioned the movie night. In 2013, that's the year I killed Fireball, and I knew I had this video that I thought was just epic, and I wanted to have it in a movie premiere because I had been doing those for the last 3 years. And that season prior, I had filmed Casey go on an elk hunt in Idaho, and I knew he hadn't shared it on his YouTube channel. And I was working at the gym, and one day I just texted Casey, like, would you want to have a movie premiere with me? And he's like, heck yeah, 5 exclamation marks. Like didn't ask any questions at all. He's like, dude, I've got the Idaho hunt, and I've got, my boys, taking my boys hunting for antelope, and then the Fireball video. So that actually is the one thing, besides just becoming friends and kind of having this vision that like YouTube could be the future of hunting content and social media platforms, that kind of got us together. And BMAC was in that loop as well. And that is kind of when we came together, because at this time, like Casey was doing the channel as Hushin' with Levere, and it was kind of his own personal channel. And then invited me to the channel after the success of the movie night. I think it just all hit us, especially coming from BMAC. He sat us down at dinner and go, BMAC's on this side of the table. Me and Casey are next to each other like this. And BMAC goes, if you guys really think about it, like Casey has what you need, Eric, which is a big platform and eyeballs. And Eric has what you need, Casey, at that time, which is just another face to create more content and upload consistently to YouTube. Ryan suggested Casey bring me on to the Hush channel. And Casey goes, yeah, I thought about that. And I'm like, yeah, me too. And we looked at each other kind of like, well, why didn't you say anything, And
So
for me, it was like, well, that's kind of your baby. That's your thing. We were trying to think of other ideas to come together, but it was really Brian who just identified, like, why don't you guys just work together? And clearly Brian was there the whole time, and we just kind of slowly.
It's kind of crazy because I think technology moves so fast, you forget a little bit about where things were back in 2012, 13, 14. And I mean, onX, for example, was still using, chips. And so now we look at like how fortunate we are to have it right on our phone, pretty much any place, anytime. It's not a lot different from our business. YouTube had very little hunting content on it across the board. And so most people consume their outdoor content through forums, through print magazines, and through outdoor television. And so we were this new idea that was kind of coming into the industry. And when we took it from this kind of idea to try to make it a business, the hardest part was getting companies to change where they were spending their money, right? Because it was new and different. And so that part is kind of crazy to think about. And honestly, not that long of a window, how different the pendulum has swung from where we were when we started to where we are right now. And so much of that is the, adoption of the smartphone and smart TVs and just technology as a whole. And obviously now there's endless amount of content on YouTube that is centered around hunting and fishing. And back in those days, there wasn't much.
Yeah, I remember
No, that's
when
go
my
ahead.
brother offered up that idea of like, hey man, you could literally have your own hunting show on YouTube right now. You don't have to have anybody like tell you that you can do that. Anybody can make a channel and create any content they want. And so when we started doing that, I remember like researching and looking on YouTube, and there really wasn't. There might have been one or two people I identified at the time that was consistently putting up YouTube videos on hunting. And over the years, like in the last 11, 12 years, you get on YouTube and you can literally search out anything in the hunting space and the hunting niche, anything that you want to do out in the woods. And there's somebody creating content around that, which I think is amazing. And that's something we have always done really well. I think at first, when we all came together, we identified the biggest issue was there wasn't a lot of people watching or gathering their outdoor entertainment from YouTube. So as a group, we always said, like, let's help other people create content on YouTube. And if more people are creating it, it will just bring more eyeballs. And I think we've done a fairly good job of that, of helping other people get to, showing them what we've done that's worked and things that haven't worked. But now, man, like, I don't even know if outdoor TV exists anymore because you don't need it. You can get on YouTube and literally search anything you want to watch for hunting and fishing, and it's there, which is cool to see. And it's happened in the matter of, 11, 12 years.
Yeah, no, it's been really cool to watch too. I mean, you guys definitely pioneered that space and look where it's at today. And I mean, the relationship that onX and Hush has goes way back. I mean, I've worked for onX for like 8.5, a little over 8.5 years. And I mean, you guys were on the entire time. And so you guys have seen the progression kind of along with me as being an employee here. And it's super cool. I always tell people when they ask what I do, kind of give a quick like, here's what I do, but then also just dive into how cool it is to actually, as a kid, I grew up like watching folks create content like you guys. And then as part of my job is to like, we've shared hunts on Kodiak Island before, with a couple of these guys and just things like that. Super, super awesome. So, yeah, appreciate the overview and then obviously the relationship all these years. Would you guys so couple next part here, I want to jump into like 2023 season. Obviously, you guys had an epic season, as you always do. Kind of a brief overview of the hunts you did, and then maybe pick a favorite one and tell a little bit about like why was it favorite. So I don't know, BMAC, if you want to kind of kick that off for you, and then we can kind of go around
Yeah.
the table a little bit.
Sure. Always grateful for any year that we can wake up and do something we love as not only a passion, but a career. And so every year is truly a blessing. We're so fortunate to have the support of great, amazing people that have consumed our content, bought our merchandise, supported us. That goes with companies and just folks in general. So thank you for that. For me, like I got a chance to experience one of the most incredible elk hunts of my life. Was lucky enough to go visit the White Mountain Apache Reservation in Arizona. It's notoriously known as kind of the world's most greatest elk hunting spot. And from just like the people, the culture, the traditions, and the unbelievable elk footage that Matt and I were able to capture and just experience in real life was pretty incredible. So I kind of feel like it was like a once in a lifetime hunt. checked all the boxes that I had hoped for. I didn't really have a lot of expectations other than hopefully see a lot of cool elk stuff. And we were lucky enough to do that. Made a really amazing video out of it that hopefully showcases a little bit about the culture on the reservation and the conservation initiatives they put in place to get the kind of elk herd they do have currently. And so that stands out as a real unique highlight. And then got to spend time out hunting with my dad, which is always a plus. Really enjoyed that. Went up to Canada and experienced some new things up there, some Alberta mule deer hunting, and but overall, I'd say the White Mountain hunt really stood out to me as just a really cool opportunity.
Yeah, if anybody on here or after the fact watches this on YouTube, and if you haven't watched that elk hunt, like as soon as you get done watching this webinar, go watch that elk hunt. I just watched it like last week and it was amazing. Probably one of the coolest, if not the coolest 5-point elk I've ever seen. So congrats on that. And yeah, if you haven't already, go to
Thanks.
the Hush channel and find that. What's the name of that video?
I think it's like Arizona bow hunt right now, White Mountain Apache Reservation. If you just search our channel, it's probably one of the most recent 5 videos or so.
Sweet. Eric, what about you?
Man, so 2023 has been a reminder. It's kind of humbled me. I've had some really great seasons the last 5 or 6 years, some banger seasons in there. And I went into this season trying to focus on elk. I've really been enjoying elk hunting the last, I mean, it's always been something I've loved. I've just been able to focus on it a little more these last couple of years. And I've been fortunate enough to have 5 elk tags this year and the year before. And just to line that up in a way that like none of the seasons overlap and you have everything from August to late December is really fun because you get to see elk in so many different terrains, pre-rut to post-rut to winter range. So I've been lucky enough to do that these last 2 seasons, but 23 just started off slower than I can ever remember. Utah archery, OTC just kicked my butt in a lot of the places where I'd play the boundary game. Obviously thanks to onX, not like I need to plug that, but some of my spots they're hit and miss because you're playing that boundary game. And these last few years, it's really worked in my favor. And I found those little pockets and I've caught them on the public side. This year, it was completely the opposite. Both Utah and Idaho, it was literally just watching elk on the private side, like sitting there, just being like awesome rut footage, everything, you would dream of an elk hunt, but they're just not where you have access. So 23 started off slow for me. Went from Idaho, harvested a bull in Idaho with my bow. Matt was there, Casey was there. That was a super fun hunt. Just doing it, backpack style and doing it as a team, and everything just happened in a way that made it for a cool experience because I haven't had a lot of like calling in sequences through my elk hunts. A lot of spot and stock, a lot of like just sliding in quiet. So we got in on a bull and Matt decoyed him and called him in to 50 yards and just one of those like worked out perfect. That was a super fun hunt. And then from there, I went to New Mexico where I kind of had high hopes. That's another thing I learned this year is you kind of have a vision sometimes of going into each hunt of like what quality of animals you might find in that unit. And these last 2 years has just been proof that like you cannot predict it. The units, I was like, yeah, man, like first mature bull, 5 point, 6 point, and then you find a giant. And then, so the hunts that you may not think you have potential to find the big one is where you find the big one. So New Mexico, I had high hopes for a big bull and never found one. And I stuck to my guns and held out and I walked off that mountain without a bull. And Matt was on that hunt as well. And we physically probably worked harder than most any hunt I've been on. Just high country, steep, a lot of hiking, a lot of glassing. But a super good time. I love being out there as a horse drop camp. A lot of fun. But the one that sticks out to me, we just got back from, well, it was in November, but a Colorado over-the-counter elk tag. And, for those who have watched the channel, they'll probably remember our semi-live series where me, B-Mac, and Casey would go out to Colorado and we'd focus third season on mule deer. And we would do the semi-live series where we upload those videos daily. And we have always focused those hunts on mule deer, and sometimes I would get an elk tag just because it's over the counter and it's unlimited. So it seemed like the years that we would be hunting deer, I'd want to focus so hard on deer, I wouldn't want to distract myself with an elk tag. And then I'd see a giant bull, like a big OTC bull. So the next year I might get an elk tag just in case, and I wouldn't see that caliber bull. So I've never focused Colorado third season on elk, but that was my goal this year in 23 was to focus third season on elk. And again, the expectations going in was like, sure, I'd love to find a mature bull, but I'll shoot the first legal bull we see probably. And then we just ended up, playing again. Like onX is so valuable because this hunt is another perfect example of just being like, okay, after opening weekend, we're seeing tons of people. It's a deer hunt and it's an elk hunt, and they're both basically general season. So high pressure, get on the map, get on the wilderness layer, like the roadless purple fog one, and find like the most roadless stuff. And we did that on a Tuesday. So we kind of waited for that weekend pressure, got out to a knob that we found on the map that we knew would offer a great vantage of this big canyon that had no roads, just trails, horse trails. And that's when I glassed, there was 4 bulls on a really steep peak. And we got over there and we were able to, we had 3 tags. Matt kind of came in as a bonus tag. And we just figured, hey, if you see bulls this time of the year, you typically see more. But we were able to see those bulls, utilize the map to figure out how to get over there for the evening hunt. And we knocked down 3 of them on the same ridge within like, I don't know, I mean, a minute of shooting, within the minute of shooting them all. So that was the most memorable hunt of 23. It was just kind of like Matt didn't take his gun that day. He was like, hey guys, I'm cameraman. I'm not going to take my gun. Like Jordan's here. He's got a tag. What are the odds of us shooting 3? And so the fact that we made it happen with that whole thing on an over the counter tag, and also to shoot some really nice bulls, it's just kind of like one of those like, man, I'll never say never, because I'll never say never for anything, but it's like that may never happen again, you know.
Yeah, that's crazy. How far of a pack was that for 3 bulls?
So the 3 bulls were quartered, and all we called it with meat tree, this tree that had fallen. I had my saw on me and everything. We made this meat tree, hung all the quarters, 3 quartered elk with all the scraps, back straps, tenderloins, everything sitting there with the heads. It was 2 miles, but the first push of it out of there was like this. These bulls were on, like when you think of a mountain range, you think of like the highest peaks. They're always very distinct. They're on the face of one of those. And it was just it luckily it wasn't like through the deadfall, but it was the first climb out was like this, and then a long trek across the ridge. So we decided to call in some horses and mules.
It,
Good
it
call.
was it was 1,800 feet and just about a mile to get to the ridge line where you could walk out 1,800 feet of elevation. So not very fun.
Yeah, that's a pull. That's awesome. That sounds like a sweet hunt. Matt, what about you? Might even be the same hunt, but what was your season like? What was your favorite?
Oh man. Probably my season was my best season yet. Like uh it really was. These had a archery mule deer hunt, my dream deer tag, and I'm a big mule deer guy, so that's my favorite hunt of the year, even though it didn't end the way I had hoped. Just hunting mule deer in the high country, just finding groups of big old red mule deer up in the subalpine basins is my favorite thing to do. And I got to spend time with my brother and Logan and my dad. And yeah, man, that was my favorite hunt of the year. But I was also able to get an elk in Colorado and an elk in Utah. And the elk in Utah was super fun too. Shared that with my brother. It was a muzzleloader over the counter tag, and we tracked down some bulls in about a foot of snow, just following their tracks, and ran into them bedded, and was able to shoot my biggest bull elk. So it was a crazy cool year, man. But yeah.
That's awesome. Logan, what about you? You had a heck of a season.
Yeah, it was a good year.
Just knocking them down.
I kind of have 2. I'm gonna cheat. I kind of have 2.
Don't
I'm probably gonna steal yours.
Yeah, you know
So
you are. No, you're not. Go
the
ahead.
first one would be Casey's moose hunt, right? You only get to do that once. He gets to do it once. I get to do it once, and I got to go with him. And it was cool that whole process because I got to kind of watch him work his butt off, setting cameras and really being dialed to this hunt. And it was cool to watch how fired up he was about it. And then obviously, if you guys haven't seen the video or seen the moose, the outcome of it was insane. One of the coolest things I've ever been a part of to, watch my brother shoot his bow at a giant moose in some of the most beautiful country you've ever seen. But I'm saying that because he killed a giant moose and it was cool that it was just me and him and I was able to be a part of that. But he actually surprised me with an elk tag at the very end of that hunt. And then that leads into my favorite hunt of the year was my very first archery bull elk in McCall, Idaho with some of our really good buddies from Drift West. And if you haven't seen that video yet, I got straight up spoiled. We were in bugling bulls every single day. Well, let me go back a little bit. So when he surprised me, my hunt started in 13 days.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd been shooting my bow. Like I always shoot my bow in the summer and get ready. But he's like, you really have to get ready. You have 13 days. You're going on this elk hunt. And so I was reaching out to buddies from Born and Raised. I was texting Trent and Trevor and asking Casey his opinion. Like, okay, what do you think is the best broadhead? And I think I spent hours upon hours doing research, probably that I didn't need, on every technical feature of every broadhead. And I finally landed on one. And Casey was like putting the pressure on me, like, dude, you got to be dialed like out to 60 yards, 70 yards. And I think he was kind of messing with me, but he's like, yeah, talking to the Drift West guys, the average shot's been about 65, 75 yards. So I'm sweating, thinking, oh man, I got to be ready. So just going out and practicing every day at those long distances. And would you have it? Would you know? We had a bull walk into flipping 7 yards. And I shot him at 7 yards and shoot, I don't know, like Eric said, never say never, but I don't know if I'll ever have that experience in the elk woods again with a tag in my pocket and a bow in my hand, but be able to be surprised with that hunt. And then on top of that, have the outcome and the sequence kind of play out like it did. Truly, I would say that's my favorite hunt I've been on in the last 6 years.
First
That's
bull.
awesome.
Oh,
Yeah, first bull with a bow.
Yeah, the my first bull was with a bow was about the same. It was I didn't range him, but he was definitely under 10 yards for sure. So yeah, once in a while, especially with the first ones, maybe you just get a little lucky like that.
Yeah.
Well, that's why you
KCM
practice those long ranges, like 60, 70 yards. Because if you're dialed and you feel super comfortable there, then it's probably gonna end up going to be a 10-yard shot.
I remember thinking when he was
Yeah.
walking, I was like, if he gets any closer, my arrow's not even get off my string.
Yeah, no kidding. Honestly, I've been practicing super close shots too every once in a while, just because like, you draw on an elk or something at 5 yards and all of your pins are on it, and it can almost be a little bit hectic as well. But Casey, I'm guessing that I know your favorite hunt of the year, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I was very fortunate. Just so everyone knows, this is kind of how we set our seasons up is, like most Western hunters, we put in for majority of the states. All of us are carrying a few points here and a few points there. So we always kind of wait until the draws come out to, see if anybody was lucky that year to draw. And then always some opportunities arise every year, like being able to go to the White Mountain for Brian this year. I was able to go the first hunt of the year. I was able to take my son and Trent from Born and Raised. He took his daughter. We were able to go to Alaska. But then, we just kind of plug and play everything according to what we draw, and then over the counter stuff, and some opportunity stuff that we always have arise, which has been awesome. And that's kind of how we just put the season together. And so I am a little biased. I absolutely love spending time in the woods with my kids. Anytime they have a tag or they can tag along with me is probably the most special time in the mountains for myself anymore. But honestly, like the moose, I was fortunate to draw a moose tag in Idaho this year, which is a once in a lifetime tag. And honestly, it was the first year I ever put in for moose. A lot of people were like, oh, what the heck? But Idaho is a no point state. So there's no points. There's not a point system. Everyone has an equal shot of drawing, especially if you're a resident. And honestly, the reason I did decide to do it is, the winter we had last year, I felt like the deer and the elk might be struggling a little bit this year, and I felt like the moose probably wintered really well. So I was like, man, if I was to have a moose tag, this might be the year. So I decided to finally put in for moose, and I was fortunate to draw it, and it was an amazing hunt. And again, like you're planning, I was literally planning my whole fall around this hunt. The tag starts August 30th, goes all the way till the end of November. So you have 3 solid months to go try to make it happen. And being a once in a lifetime, you really want to experience all those things. And just like shooting out 70 yards and preparing like that. And I was preparing to have this thing be maybe a 2-3 month long hunt. I killed the first 2.5 hours of opening day. So I had a lot of time on my hands after that. But, I really like to dedicate a portion of my season to helping out my family, my kids, my wife, friends, people that might have a tag. But honestly, my most memorable hunt this year is the one we just got done with. And we were able to team up with a company called Rally Point Outdoors, who is starting to take vets on hunts and outdoor experiences. And we teamed up with them earlier this year. And I started talking to the owner, Matthew, and he put a hunt together where we were going to take 4 vets out to Illinois and hunt whitetails for 3 days on their muzzleloader season. And so me, Matt, Eric, and Logie went out there and got teamed up with a vet and got to spend 3 days with those guys. And it was just, the deer hunting was super slow. It was late season whitetail hunting with super warm weather, which is not ever beneficial when you're trying to hunt those bucks after the rut. But just spending time with those guys and getting to know them a little more and hearing their stories and truly what those guys have done for us in our country is pretty amazing. I kept telling them, like, they're the real superheroes, and they really are, man. And to walk away from that hunt just having a greater appreciation for all the men and women that serve our country is pretty cool to see. And so I think that's probably my most memorable hunt of the year.
Yeah, that's awesome. And again, for anybody tuned in here or watching it after, most of these, pretty much every hunt that you guys said is already out on your channel, right?
Yeah, that veteran hunt will come later, but every
Okay.
other one live right now.
Yeah.
Same with, well,
Yeah, you
Colorado trip will
you
be a little later too.
Yeah, Colorado too.
copy. Yeah. The all those are incredible hunts to, to hear the story is one thing, and then to watch it is a whole nother. So definitely check that content out if you haven't already. And so just looking at again some of these photos, a lot of these were the hunts that you guys were just referring to. Amazing animals, and this is just a fraction of them. So we'll dive into a couple other things here and then jump into what probably most people tuned in for, which is the Q&A. So we always do a small giveaway as a token of appreciation for everybody taking the time out of their evening. So we're gonna give away some onX Hunt t-shirts. We'll drop the link in the chat and get signed up. It'll just take a second there. So we'll be giving those away. If you're interested in future master classes, we'll also drop that link in the chat. Get signed up for those ahead of time. We got some cool application season stuff coming up with our good friends over at Huntful, some onX Hunt 101s, teaching folks how to use different features and just the basics of the app a little bit better. Same with that office hours. And then we have a cool ship hunting one coming up that I believe Eric's gonna jump on as well and be a part of. So get signed up for those. Even if you're not sure if you can attend them, get signed up. We'll email you the day before as a reminder. And then if you can't attend for whatever reason, we also send you a link to the recorded webinar after the fact. So again, just get signed up for those even if you're not sure if you can make it. So we'll jump into some Q&A here. So we've got some register questions and then also the live ones. Again, if you have any questions live that you want answered, use the Q&A at the bottom, not the chat. I guess kind of to piggyback off of, we just talked a ton about 2023 season. What does 2024 bring, and is there anything in particular that you guys are super excited for this next year?
Well, we've got some stuff brewing, but we can't mention it just yet. But there's good possibilities for some pretty cool collaborative stuff that we've been working on for a little while that I know is exciting. We've certainly got, for being totally honest, we're not very good at planning. And so one of our action items for 24, Dylan, so glad you brought this up, is to try to do a little bit better job early on laying out what our fall looks like. Like Casey mentioned, a lot of us have points in various states. Some have more, some have less. We're opportunists, right? So we love any kind of hunting, whether it's a bow or rifle, muzzleloader, etc. So trying to explore like what the fall will bring. Certainly over the years, like elk hunting is kind of our jam overall. But we love it all, right? Blacktail, whitetail, mule deer, you name it. It's good times. So that's on our agenda, is to try to get together as a group and figure out who has points in what states, where are we going to put in for, what other like hunts do we have with family members, with friends, with business associates, and try to start putting the puzzle pieces together. Again, it's not one of our core competencies. Certainly an opportunity to do a little bit better. So maybe this will be our year. Maybe we actually get ahead of the calendar and have like a real good plan this time. Maybe not.
It's tough too, especially when you're waiting on the draws and you should draw this tag, point creep, and
Yep.
a good time to plug, and I'm actually going to get it in your guys' hands for some testing here soon, but we've been working really hard over the past full entire year on a really cool new research tool that will be a crucial tool for all of application season. So not just draw odds, but just kind of a more robust tool. So hopefully that'll help you guys. I know it's going to help me. I've been playing around with it in the background a little bit and doing a bunch of testing right now. So that's going to be live this application season for customers, but I'll get it in your guys' hands before then for some feedback and testing, and hopefully it helps you draw a few more tags this year. But yeah, the planning is crazy because it's at the very end of the season, you automatically like absolutely right away have to start planning 24, especially if you're gonna hunt out of state. If you're looking at Alaska and some other stuff, it comes up quick. Another
Yeah,
one
that's our problem
here.
too.
Yeah.
Is like, Eric will be out shed hunting and forget to apply for a couple states or something. So we have to work on that, Dylan. Maybe this new thing you're talking about will help us get more organized.
Yeah. Yeah. Make sure you use Hunt Reminder with your elite membership. You have Hunt Reminder. You get what's really cool about that is so like you go in for all the state species, whatever, you learn about really cool new opportunities that you didn't even know existed. But then you select you want to be reminded. So it'll remind you I believe when it opens, and then a week before close, and then a day before close, and maybe even final hour. So as long as you have service, you get reminders. Check that out, especially you, Eric, if you're going to be shed hunting, because I get it.
Can you
What
you guys build out a tool, not hunt reminder, but like account number reminder and password reminder? Like you go to put in for it and it's like account number. I'm like, I don't remember. And I spend hours trying to remember what my account number is. You guys,
Yeah. Actually, so I've been using a really, really helpful one. Our good friends at Hunt and Fool have one. It's called I think Hunt Planner. I'll send you a link because I've been using that the last 3 years, actually the last 2 years, because I think it's only been out 2 years. I also apply for tags for my wife and for my dad. And so to keep those, and I'm sure you with your kids, I
yeah.
can't remember my own things, especially when you go out of state. I can't even remember my own for in-state, and I've lived here all my life. So passwords, like how many like it's really helpful for that. So I'll send you a link. But this one here, it's we could spend a bunch of time on it, but real quick, each one of you guys, what is your absolute dream hunt?
Man, I've always wanted to have an experience like BMAC and hunt an elk herd like that of the San Carlos or the White Mountain Indian Reservation. The number of bulls, the quality of bulls, and the way that they rut, and the fact that they're doing what elk would naturally be doing if there wasn't a ton and ton of pressure. They're just out there being elk, doing elk things. That sounds like a ton of fun. I've always wanted to do that.
Yeah, I'll piggyback and say my dream hunt is whatever Brian did. What I want.
That.
I would say, dude, I would say freaking one of us, somebody in the crew, we need to go kill a moose in Alaska. That's
Yeah,
mine.
that's up there.
I got the moose bug, and I realized that having the moose bug is not it's not great, because it's like I drew my once in a lifetime moose tag in Idaho. Unless I drop a bunch of money, it's probably not happening again. But if I was to go do like a destination hunt at this point, I would love to go and hunt a giant moose up in Alaska or in
Think
the
I,
Yukon.
I do think a moose bug is probably a little bit better on your checkbook than the sheep bug.
Sheep bug. I haven't got the
In-
sheep bug yet. I got the moose bug now, though.
that's my bucket list would be like a Dall sheep hunt. I don't think I could afford the other ones, but Dall sheep is still really expensive, but yet the most attainable. So I'd say Dall sheep.
I'd probably say like a just spot and stalk wolf hunt. I think that's next on my list, but other than like a mule deer hunt, kind of like some of those backcountry wolf hunts they're doing in Idaho, like the Stuck in the Rut guys. Pretty legit. That'd be pretty fun,
Yeah,
I think.
they get after it for sure. I've spent a little time, so I'm in western Montana, pretty close to Idaho. Spent a little time hunting wolves, and I've gotten close a few times, but man, they're tough. That'd be a huge challenge. But come up to Montana sometime. We'll poke around in the winter.
I'm in.
So this one here, probably, we don't have to go through everybody's, but if somebody has a good answer, feel free to interject and answer this one. Who are your guys' mentors we'll just stick with this, like the hunting world. Is there anybody that maybe one of you guys grew up watching or something that kind of helped you be where you are today? Or just even maybe still today, just hunting mentors?
Chuck Adams, man. No, I was a big fan of Chuck Adams growing up. But like earlier, what I was saying about there's so much, not just content on YouTube and online. There's a lot of really fantastic content online, and there's a lot of channels that have popped up recently in the last 5-6 years that I watch a lot. I watch a lot of YouTube hunting stuff, and there's a bunch of channels out there, a few channels out there that really do a phenomenal job. Obviously, our good buddies, Born and Raised, do a fantastic job. Stuck in the Rut guys do a fantastic job. But yeah, I love to see where YouTube has gone and see, the amount of really good content that's uploaded every day now. And so I watch a lot of YouTube stuff.
Old
Yeah.
school, man, back in the DVD days was probably like Larry D. Jones, being an Oregonian. He was definitely one of those guys that, man, broke down a lot of barriers for people just filming elk hunts. And so Larry and Dwight made some really cool things back historically. But outside of that, just like true mentors, like my dad for sure, just get me out there as a young person, get me interested in archery and bow hunting when I was a teenager. Certainly top of my list.
Yeah, I'll just add it to that real quick. Stuff I related to the most through my early years was shed hunting related. So people who had shed hunting in their VHSs, I was attracted to. So Doyle Mossback stuff in Utah, obviously killing giant bulls in Utah. Mike Brownlee with the Mega Buck series. When I was young, I must have watched those videos on rerun like thousands of times, and like the Popeye buck and Mr. BC and all the deer that he followed year after year. That's where I really learned that you can pattern deer and find multiple years of their sets and stuff like that. And then Ryan Hatch, always seeing the big mule deer that he'd kill down in southern Utah and Arizona. Those three, I had every DVD and VHS they put out, and I watched them 1,000 times each.
Yeah, that's super cool. And that did kind of take me back to when you guys were talking about just the evolution of YouTube in the last 10 years. I mean, I remember as a kid growing up hunting with my dad, we'd, go hunt all day and then come back to the camper, and we'd have one of those just giant, like, now you can just flip open a laptop and search on YouTube for thousands and thousands of videos. And we had like a giant VHS. It was like a TV specifically designed for the VHSs, and used to just wear some of those Mossback videos out. You're out looking for 150, 160-inch deer at kind of tops, and then you pop in a VHS and there's like 240, 260-inch deer on there. Like, yeah, tomorrow's the day we're gonna find that one.
All you need is that
Uh,
intro music and you'll get fired up.
That's funny.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
I remember going to the expo way back in the day, back when it was like the Doug Miller show, and that was the whole point of me going, is to go to every booth that were creating DVDs at the time and buying their DVDs. And Mossback definitely was one of those guys.
That's awesome. This question here is around your guys' spice blend. So real quick, whoever wants to jump on this question, like, what is your spice blends? Where can people find them? I can firsthand attest that they're absolutely amazing. I've got a bunch of them and use them all the time. So what's up with your spice blends? And then where can they find them? And is there any new spice blends on the horizon?
We just dropped 2 new ones recently. So we dropped Taco and we dropped Ranch, Rocky Mountain Ranch. And then we have 6 others that go along with that. But you can find them on our website or our mobile app. And man, I'm biased because they're ours, but they're pretty dang delicious. Garlic butter herb is a big seller. Wild game whiskey and the perfect blend. Those would be the top 3 as far as just popularity goes. But I would recommend you just get creative with them. They're going great on any wild game, fish, chicken, you name it. And they I don't know, they've got some good ingredients in them, so they don't have like a high level of sodium or any kind of random, additional things that aren't healthy for you. So they've been a great addition to our lineup. We all are passionate about eating the game that we pursue. And it's been like a great addition for us to add that to kind of our product lineup in the last, I guess, year and a half.
Awesome. Yeah, like I said, I think the perfect blend, that one goes on pretty much about anything, and I'm almost out of that one, so I'll need to at Expo season stock up a little bit. But yeah, all those are super good. I'm excited to try that the new taco one as well. Um, what is your hardest hunt? Does anybody have like a hunt that really stands out, and we could either do each individual, or if you have a story you want to throw out of just like one of those super crazy hard hunts that you'll never forget. Go for it.
I'll start real quick. So the firebolt hunt was, just one of those crazy one in a million opportunity type of things. But I always tell people, like, I really love hard physical hunts. And this one was the easiest physical hunt ever. I drove a four-wheeler to where I was hunting and I was sitting in a blind. Like, it took no physical hard work, but the mental side of that one was the hardest, to, especially after hitting a bull and then convincing myself that I think he's going to come back, and then, sticking to that plan when you've got a lot of people telling you otherwise. So there's a lot of hunts I've done that are physically hard. They all kind of blend together because none of them really stick out. But that one for mentally was the toughest.
Honestly, the one that comes to my mind is we actually released the video yesterday. And if you guys have ever antelope hunted before, you know, like my experience antelope hunting is you drive a lot, you glass a lot of country, and you see a lot of antelope typically. And really, like, since we started Hush, like when we go on antelope hunts, it's almost like in my head, I'm trying to like decide how we can like make it last longer than a half a day so we can kind of tell a story and have a really good film or whatever. But it's always like there's some one, does that get you excited? But my son Gage drew a tag this year in Idaho. It was kind of the same thing. We didn't have a ton of time. We had like a day and a half, and then hopefully had a couple of days at the end of the season. But I was like, let's just go get this done because we're busy. And I don't know what it is. I've talked to the biologist about the area we drew, and they didn't have a lot of winter kill. Like numbers are good, but we spent a total of like 4.5 days driving around, and we probably put like over 200 miles on the Can-Am, and we saw maybe a total of 3 antelope bucks that whole time. And it was cool to see just because it was tough mentally, like Eric talks about. And, but I kept telling my son, like, hey, man, what do you think? Like, we can just call it what it is and go home, like, and he just kept wanting to stay out there and be persistent. And then it finally paid off the last day, and he killed a really nice antelope, the biggest antelope he's killed so far, which is cool. But yeah, it's the one that sticks out. We uploaded it yesterday, so go watch it and tell me what you think. But that's one that sticks out in my head.
Yeah, I actually watched that last night, and he ended up with a super nice buck.
Yeah. Mine's like with Eric's mentally sticks out more so than physically. Like I think the physical ones are hard in the moment, but when you've accomplished it and you're back to the truck or you're back to camp or whatever, it's like it's that punishment that you would go do again after maybe you rest up for a day or two. But the mental ones are the ones that to me just haunt you. I've been chasing elk in this particular area for like the past 8 years. It's low density and it's open
Give it up,
country, and for
Brian.
some dumb reason, I keep going back there. Even though
That one
it's
is
like the hardest, most frustrating hunting every year, I just keep going back, and these guys are like, "What are you doing? Just like find a new area." So I don't know, but those are the most challenging in my mind.
I've got a good one. We actually haven't shown a video or the film of it yet, but Brian had a archery tag in Arizona last year, and well, for me, it wasn't as mentally challenging and as physically challenging. But what sticks out to my mind the most, it was like 8 or 9 days constant chasing these elk. And that was like the biggest, when Brian capitalized and made it happen, that was the biggest relief, I think, off of the team's shoulders that I've ever been on a hunt ever. Some people might say it was like a serious grind, but keep your eyes out. We were hitting maybe perhaps a movie premiere earlier. So
Wow.
Nice.
A lot of information there.
Pretty solid plug there, Loki. Hardest hunt for me this year was Eric and I in New Mexico. Man, that mountain kicks my trash every single year. 4 miles and 4,000 feet of elevation gain just to get to base camp. And I mean, it's just stupid. Like when you kill elk in there, I keep looking at Eric like, dude, how will we get it out? Like, how will we even get it out of there? But I think that was my nephew that asked that question. So what's up, Leo? Thanks for watching, buddy.
I had a couple here kind of around the same kind of thing, but I'll combine them. So how do you get started filming your own hunts? And then like what's kind of a best setup, or what's a good setup for anybody getting started to film their hunts with as far as like camera?
I'll start out by just saying, to get started, you just got to start doing it. Like everyone has a camera on hand. Like these things have come a long ways and they captured some amazing footage. And if you're just trying to get started, I mean, just whip out your phone and start filming it and just kind of get a feel for it. But moving from there, let the camera guys tell you a good setup.
yeah, I have the chat and questions pulled up, and I saw that question roll through, and I kind of been thinking about it. The question I think was like, what is like your have to have gear while you're out trying to film your own hunts? How do you get started? Me and Matt get asked this question quite a bit at expos and when we meet people out in the wild. My answer is always start with what you know, right? And it seems to be a very common answer. Like Casey just said, last year I filmed an entire deer hunt on this right here, just to prove that it could be done and it could be really good quality. But going into a hunt, I think the number one most important thing you can have is an idea of what you want your product to look like, an idea of what you're trying to do. I think everybody always has these questions like, what is the secret? Like, what do I need to have? What you need to have is a story in your head that you want to tell, and then use what you know best, which is your phone. And then after that, after you get a couple of those under your belt and you start doing things like that, I would recommend Sony. Then start diving into, all right, I'm about this. I want to do this. Let's look at some entry level mirrorless cameras.
You're talking about brands. Would you say Sony is like the best entry level camera?
I would say Sony. Well, it depends on who you ask, but yeah, I'm a team Sony. I like the idea of Sony just because it's easier. It's the easiest to evolve through the cameras. Like you can start with a ZV-1 point and shoot, figure out the layout of everything, what it looks like going into post production, and then you can evolve easily into some of the higher end cameras through Sony.
I agree with Logie.
Want to add anything on that, big dog?
No, like we had this kid send us a video, his first YouTube video he ever made the other day. Me and Eric and Casey were sitting at lunch and we watched it together. He's like, man, what could I do to like get better? And I was like, man, the video is cool, like nice bull, but storyline's the biggest thing. Tell a good story, have good audio, and then worry about what the video looks like after that. So yeah, like Logie said, learn your equipment. You could have a $200 camera, used camera, and if you know like the exposure triangle and how to run that thing, it can look better than some $5,000 setup. So just learn your gear and be confident with it.
And just one tip on that, like I'd say the most common comment for people who have either tried to create a video just on their own or had come and watched us, and especially these guys work behind the camera, they go, I didn't realize how much footage it took to make like a 20-minute film.
Yeah.
People are always like, dude, I got a great film. And it's like, all right, let's see it. And they really strive for that kill shot, which is, important. And it's a bonus. Like kill shot's awesome. But man, you got to document a lot, get a lot of B-roll, film when you don't even want to. Like when you're in the dumps, if you ever think like, I don't want to film right now, you should probably get that camera out, talk about how you're feeling. So just film a lot. So when you do to go to edit that, you have enough audio, enough updates, enough B-roll to create some type of film out of it.
I think like a really nice rule of thumb is you can always edit things down, right? But you can never go recapture the moment out on a hunt. So when in doubt, fill up SD cards. That's what we tell the guys. Fill them up. We can always chop it up and find the best of the best. But if you don't hit record when you're out in the field, whether the good, the bad, the kill shot, the crummy weather, the unfortunate turn of events that happens, you'll never be able to go recreate that.
Heck yeah.
Awesome stuff. Question here. So this individual said, I just wrapped up a late archery here in Arizona, was unsuccessful. How would you prep for a late elk hunt for bow, and what changes when rifle season comes around?
Man, I'm yet to really put a true effort into a late bow hunt, but I've got a lot of friends who have been lucky enough to do it in Arizona. Obviously, we got the late hunts here in Utah. I would just be focusing on like watching bulls from a distance, like starting out really finding bulls, inching closer and closer, using maps and topography to get close and just watch what they're doing because they're typically feeding a lot this time of the year. They're more active. And with a bow and a lot of these winter range type of areas, you're going to have groups of mature bulls together in sometimes really rough, rugged country. So I would be pretty picky on my stocks. And that's hard for me because I really like to get after it. But in a late bow hunt, I would really start to pick and choose my stocks. And I would most likely focus on bedding them, getting the wind, the thermals right, and making just the best stock you can on embedded. Unless you have found their patterns and you kind of know like, okay, this saddle, they seem to cross often and you can watch them and then spot and stock them. But a late archery hunt, man, I'd really be focused on watching those big, steep, rugged canyons, getting close and then moving in on them bedded. That's probably what I would do.
High probability stocks, like watch them for several days until they're in like a slam dunk of a spot is what I'd add to that, I think.
So basically archery mule deer hunt, but for elk.
Yeah. Like
Yes.
it'd be
Yeah.
so different. Like it sounds like I was just talking about it. Utah's opened up some late archery hunts and I don't have a ton of points. So it's kind of tempting to go try one of these premier units December big bull elk with a bow. I mean, that'd be a challenge. I think that's one of the tougher hunts out there for sure.
I'd say though, I think elk are pretty predictable animals in areas, different times of year. Just like the rut, there's an area, a bull likes to rut in, likes to push cows in, and especially late season, there's areas that certain bulls like to be late season to try to recover from the rut. And I would say just get out and learn those areas the year before. And I'm not a giant shed hunter, but what I've seen with Eric throughout the years is Eric knows the cycle of the elk and where they go because of where he finds the sheds. Like he can tell you if he knows of a certain bull, he can tell you exactly where that bull's going to be. And especially late season before the shed, I think a lot of people overlook that, but shed hunting can be a super valuable tool to learn what the elk are doing in that certain area.
Yeah, good stuff. We'll dive into a couple more here and then wrap it up. How do you guys use public land hunting pressure at your advantage? or do you? Is that a tactic?
Oh, for me, 100%. Like getting away from roads and trailheads, like that Colorado hunt was the perfect time. It's you just got to know, like on a general season type of hunt, public land in general, once the opening weekend goes down, dude, elk are not just cruising. Sure, you can get lucky. There's always someone cruising on the road, hiking at the trailhead, and they got lucky. But to be consistent, you have to use the mapping tools to get you away from the roads after pressure and just find spots that they're hiding, and just get away from the crowds.
I think you can look at different scenarios too. The mentally frustrating hunt that I've referenced before, is there's not a lot of road lists per se, so it's easier access, but you got to try to identify, like through scouting and spending time out there learning the terrain, where could you position yourself as an escape play, that if somebody was to put pressure on them in a highly, these elk are out in an open area, they're going to be seen. There's going to be pressure applied. So where are they going to go when that pressure is applied? And how can you get yourself in a position to intercept that when they're transitioning from, let's say, where they're rutting overnight to where they're going to go bed in the morning? And a lot of that takes time, right? Just learning the terrain, learning the country, and learning like what would be the most likely place for these elk to cross over, whether that is a saddle or some pinch point or something like that. But that's just one that comes to mind.
Yeah, good stuff. Two more here. So we're gonna dive into onX for just a second on this one. What is your most used or favorite feature?
I mean, I got a couple. First and foremost, my most favorite is just marking the waypoint and changing it from red to the pink purple color, which in my mapping system indicates we killed something there. So whether that's mine, Eric's, Casey's, Logan's, Matt's, anybody you're hunting with, I'll mark that. And over the years, as you kind of build out and learn an area, it's kind of cool to see, wow, look at where we've had success. And that's the only color I'll use that for, is indicating kills. So
I
over time working together, it's been fun to kind of see how that lays out, whether it's mule deer or elk. But
I
another
picked up
tool I love,
oh, I was just gonna say real quick on that. I picked up
yeah,
that same color scheme with you and Kodiak because I
yes,
asked you
sir.
why you use that color, and then so I adopted that as well. But I'm gonna have to switch it up because every so often I have to show people my map, and I'll zoom out super far, so it's like
Yeah,
it's literally like a vomit of waypoints. There's so many waypoints that nobody could ever like. It's
yep.
not useful, but I'm gonna have to switch up the colors now that I just let people know that. So.
I'll do that, and then I'll attach like a trophy photo into that waypoint.
Yeah.
So it's fun to kind of go look back historically and see, oh yeah, man, that one time in 2015, Eric got that sick buck or whatever. So that's one. Another kind of sleeper tool that I like is the radius waypoint. So where it's come in handy for me archery hunting is dropping the radius either in going in on a stock. So let's say you got a pretty good idea where this pronghorn is bedded, and you could say, okay, my effective range in this scenario is 60 yards. You can set the radius for that. So as your track is on and you're sliding in and sliding in without even having to go like pick up your rangefinder, suddenly you're like, okay, I'm within the radius, like it's go time. On the flip side is after a shot has been made, leveraging that for like blood tracking aspects. So we use it on my elk hunt, but historically most double lung shots on an elk aren't going to go beyond 200 yards. So setting that as your perimeter and then being able to kind of work accordingly with tracks on a blood track is great. If you have other people that have tracks on, maybe it's a more challenging blood trail, then you can start overlaying the tracks. But I like that feature, just knowing, okay, here's our boundary based on the tracks and the blood. Like we're kind of working in this pie shaped direction. If we stay in here diligently, we ought to turn that deer, that elk up.
I'll go. So a couple features. Shed hunting, number one thing is the track. to match up sets, to grid out some of these south slopes I hit. Sometimes I find myself thinking out in the field, like, am I passing up antlers because I'm looking at onX too much? Like, that's how much I'm on it. And when I grid, I use that system to help grid and help find matches. And then obviously for the next year, I might be in an area that I don't want to, like, there's obviously time for browns that year, but I'll purposely like veer off a track, and I'll do that by just making sure with the map, and I'll find stuff I missed the year before. So that's my favorite, which is funny because I think didn't you guys do an update at some time, and like I was telling you like, dude, my tracks are gone, and you said something like Eric's got so much data of tracks that it like can't register or is having
Yeah,
trouble.
it was an absurd amount of data points for your tracks. But yeah, once you use them for that specifically, it's tough, especially like if you and I were on a, I'm sure you've done this before. We've done this looking for a bull before, but also for sheds. Like if you and I are on the same shed hunt trip, like I'll save my track in brown, you save yours in yellow or whatever, then I share you mine, like so we have each other's. So if I'm gonna go exert myself all day to try and find some horns, or if we're grid searching looking for an animal, I'm not gonna grid the exact same stuff that you walk the day before or even the year before, to your point, if you are fine finding some whites or older sheds. So yeah, especially when you start sharing them back and forth and being like, hey, you covered that, I'll cover this, and then compare those notes. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's definitely my favorite for shed hunting. And then hunting, specifically rifle hunting, is the touch screen, the 2-point touch distance. I mean, if I see a bull off in the distance or a buck, I start looking at the topography, and I'm able to like register that topography so quickly with the layer maps of the topography lines, and just be like, okay, if I get to that ridge, how close? Oh, boom, 550. All right. I mean, it's just like that's huge for me because the touch screen is handy, and then just giving me the, an estimated distance. It just takes all the guesswork out of it. So those are my just two that I love.
I would say the one I used a lot this year that I learned about, I don't know how long it's been up, is the build the route and then the snap to.
Yeah.
And especially with the CarPlay now that we have, that you can see it on your screen and trying to like get to a waypoint and navigate to a waypoint. So you just hit a waypoint, and then you can do build a route to. And then if you hit snap to, it will give you a route just like Google Maps on how to get to that waypoint. And it's amazing because instead of looking at your phone, there's the CarPlay option now that you can actually have it on your screen. That's been super useful for me. I've probably used that thing more than anything else this year.
Yeah. One I used a lot on my mule deer hunt was like the range finding compass tool. So when I was planning a stalk on a deer, I could range a deer and be like 750 yards. Then I'd pull up onX and use the rangefinder tool and match it to exactly 750. And okay, it's that patch of jack pines, and be able to drop a pin exactly with yardage with the laser rangefinder. That I thought was super, super handy. I think it's going to help a lot with finding sheds that you glass up too, is you can range the sheds and then drop a pin, because when you get on that same hillside as the sheds, it's a mess.
Dude, I got one. It's not, I don't know if it's like a dedicated feature, but when you're in, this is something I just started doing recently, but when you're in 3D mode, whether you're like looking at a new mountain range or anything with like a bunch of topography and you're in 3D mode, I love that like on the elevation, you can over exaggerate it so the mountain really stands out. It just helps you pick out like little nooks and crannies so much better than having just kind of that flat 3D.
Especially when I think it's useful when you're trying to find, if you like found a glassing point,
Yes.
and then you can really get in there and see if it's going to be a good glassing point, if anything's going to be obstructing that point. I think that's very useful.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So you can click up, it says elevation. Do you know what, is that called anything?
Yeah, so that was the elevation, just exaggeration. And honestly, that was kind of originally designed with the whitetail hunters in mind. So we mostly hunt out west in the mountains, so it's pretty easy in 3D to see. Obviously, it doesn't really give you a great representation. Oftentimes, I'll look at maps in 3D and then get there in person and be like, wow, it's a little bit bigger in person. I'm gonna have to lace my boots up and get after it. So it does help with that to paint a more true picture. But that I love that that feature was designed for something else and then widely adopted all throughout. Like I use it a ton in the West, but in areas like Montana, for example, I'm from Eastern Montana, live in Western, so it's super mountainous where I live. When I go back home to Eastern Montana, like you look at 3D and it's just kind of underwhelming. And I found if you drag that exaggeration like a third-ish of the way over, it really just kind of paints a much better picture of like, oh, this is what that canyon looks like. Because you're not dealing with 3,000-foot elevation changes, you're dealing with like 30-foot elevation changes, but it makes a huge, huge difference.
Yeah, there's always that sweet spot when you're sliding through, and it just helps you establish glassing points like super fast and easy.
Yep, love it. No, all good stuff. The final question, and one of you guys can tackle this or however you want to go about it. What events are you guys going to be at this year? Where can people come see you, buy some of your guys' new swag? The spices, I'm sure you guys will obviously be at Western Hunt. Are you going to any tax? What is the next like travel season, if you will, before hunt season look like so people can find you?
Yeah, we got the Western Hunt Expo, so that's Salt Lake City, February. So it's Thursday, February 15th to the Sunday the 18th. We're working on details to potentially do that movie premiere, possibly the Thursday that the show opens. So to be determined, but keep in touch via like the mobile app, push notifications, and or just our social updates. And then as far as after that, we'll have our annual Rush for Bucks habitat project. Again, working out the details. It'll be the beginning of April. We've planted, I think, over the last 3 years, over 40,000 bitterbrush and sagebrush seedlings on critical winter range habitat throughout Idaho. And this one, this year might be like a border collaboration between Utah and Idaho. So that's always a great event to kind of strap up the boots, put the gloves on, go do some good work out on the landscape, and then we'll try to like partner with folks to give away cool stuff and just let people know we appreciate the effort. But that's in collaboration with our friends at First Light and also Idaho Fish and Game, as well as Mule Deer Foundation. So those are the two most up and coming ones, and then I think we'll try to make a play to do some more TAC events this year. We always do generally the one here in Salt Lake or wherever it is in Utah. We love the one at Big Sky before. We've done Texas before, but maybe we'll have to get out to Pennsylvania or Michigan or a few of these other locations that have materialized and popped up. It'd be kind of fun to do.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate obviously the partnership, the relationship, everything you guys have done for onX, and then also taking time out of your guys' evening and your busy schedule to jump on here and chat with the folks here and the folks that are going to watch this after the fact. So thank you guys. Thanks everybody to who did jump on and have stuck with us the last hour and a half or hour and 15. Appreciate all you guys, and let's get together and as part of the planning for 24 season, maybe we'll look at another onX Hush collaboration, cool hunt we could plan out. So we will chat soon, but thank you guys and see you guys soon.
Thanks for having us, Dylan.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thanks,
thanks for having
Dylan.
us.
Thanks everyone jumping on.
Yeah, thanks for watching, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Go Birds.
Good night.
See you fellas.
Yeah.
One check. See you guys.